Hey folks, Scott from IT Rockstars. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the show. And this episode, we're speaking to Marnie Stockman of Lifecycle Insights. She deals with customer success for MSPs. I'm probably doing a really bad explainer of this, Marnie, but we'll get into it. I've got two of your books here that I was supposed to read them both. I had COVID last week, as you know, as I mentioned,
Yes.
and I've only got through this one. It's amazing. I love it. And I think before we spoke last time, or when we spoke last time, we were talking about quarterly business reviews, and that was one of the elements within here. It's actually at the very end of the book, and that was kind of what flagged my interest in speaking with you, because certainly here at IT Rockstars, we provide marketing material for our members. And one of the things that we always tell our members is the easiest types of sales are ones with existing clients that you already have. So things like your QBRs are extremely important, and having things like marketing material to support those QBRs is important as well. So it's something that we always touch on, but it's always very vague and very loose on how it should be done. Should you have an agenda? Should you have a checklist? That's what you mention in the book, and you even go into talk about the checklist manifesto, which I only read actually about 6 months ago.
Funny.
Which I loved. So I think it's maybe a really good place to start. I know it's like the end of the book.
It's all good.
I think before we do that, it would be really good to get just a little bit insight into who you are, what it is that you do, and maybe your background. I read here that you're a maths teacher of all things.
Yeah. So I started out with the toughest customers of all, right? High school math students. So I was selling pre-calc to 16-year-olds. So right there, that should tell you something about, I always talk about customer success folks as being good English to English translators, and having, you're an advocate for your client. You're also an advocate for your company. And I think that's what a teacher does. As a matter of fact, people have asked me, who should I hire for the customer success role? And I said, go a teacher. And if you want them to be techie, go look at the sciences, the math teachers out there, right? Their brains are more geared toward the technical slants typically. And so that's kind of an interesting start. But that is where I started, high school math teacher. Went up and did assistant principal, crazy stories there for another podcast, but there's some interesting ones on that one. And then became the math supervisor and accountability coordinator. So I was in charge of all of the data for a school system. And we had an assessment platform for students, where they could go take their tests. And I ended up presenting the platform in front of the owners of the company. And they walked me to my car and said, you need to come work for us. So I landed in the world of ed tech, where I ended up running customer success. And we scaled through 4 acquisitions. So we started with 90 clients, and, a year and a half after 3 acquisitions had 900. So when you have to scale a customer success program, you learn what metrics you need, you learn how to track it, right? When you can't, so many smaller MSPs, the owner owns the relationship.
That's right. Yeah.
And
that's what I've always experienced.
And they're fearful of giving that over to anyone, because it's the quote that says, you spend 20 years making your reputation, and it can take 5 minutes to ruin it. And so they're fearful of handing off customer success to someone else. But in the course of doing that, first, I've seen my fair share of great business reviews and terrible business reviews. And we learned some processes and pieces in place that we thought made for good quarterly business reviews. I happened to be, so the developers and I all had worked together, and we were out looking for a place to kind of bring this idea someplace else. And I ran into somebody who I'd played volleyball with for 25 years. He was an MSP for 16 and a half years. And when I mentioned kind of our background, he said, well, I spent 8 hours a day, air quotes, cobbling together business reviews. And then he started throwing out all these acronyms. PSAs and RMMs and IT glue and documentation platforms and Excel. I knew that one. And he said, that we should be able to automate this. So he kind of pitched us on the idea of building a QBR platform. And then it has grown to add a customer success platform. So I'm the CEO of Lifecycle Insights. We played like rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and I lost. So I got that job. and here we are with nearly, we have 700 plus partners 3 years later.
So is it just a platform you have, or is it like consulting as part of it? How does it work?
So it is, I would say just a platform, but we do a lot of education in the space. So our core values, which are listed right on the website, so they're not secret, are to be everywhere and to educate. So the teacher in me is still very much out there. So we have community meetings with all of our partners are invited, where we do a lot of conversation. And it's not just what we bring to the table, but what our partners are doing to bring to the table to talk about business reviews. But our subscription service is Lifecycle Insights, the platform, right? So integrate with your PSA, automate reports, allow you to build your business reviews, et cetera.
Okay, going back to that, that the owner operator, that small MSP that has the relationship there, has that 20 years. What's the first steps for them to be, handing that over? I mean, I've went through this process myself. When I was on the receiving end, I went and worked for an MSP at the time, and the owner built it up over a 10-year period. And he was very reluctant to hand any of his existing clients over to me to manage at that point. And that was my first experience in that matter. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just concentrate on new sales. But I knew even back then, and this, what a sales advisor told me was, they're those existing clients, that's where the real money is, that's where the profit is. And there's lots of profit that can be had there. So what are the first sort of steps that you see someone that is owner operator led that is trying to progress and scale their MSP with things like customer success?
Well, I'll tell you the story of how I landed on my answer. So when I first became a customer success manager, the owner had gotten 2 huge accounts, one near where I was in Maryland, one in Florida. So mine was a $1.4 million account and his was a $2.1 million account. And guess what you can't do is micromanage 2 accounts that size at the same time, right? Yeah. So he said, basically, good luck, little trooper. And I had mine and he had his in Florida. And then I had the rest of Maryland. So I had, 13 more accounts. And on Friday nights, at 5:30, 2 weeks in a row, I get a panicked phone call from him. How's Hartford, Caroline County? Like, he started listing because he realized he just let go all of his babies that he had worked with over the years and didn't have any tracking, right? And the second Friday in a row, now it's 5:30. At the time, I had a middle schooler and high schooler. So I'm trying to get people out the door to games and make dinner and all these things. And he's in a panic because he didn't have any insight into what I was doing. And I would always say, like, they're fine, they're this, right? I had all of it, but I didn't have it in a place where he could grab it at any time. And he was so busy during the week that Friday at 5:30 is when he wanted to have conversations around it. So the third week, I shared a spreadsheet with him where I started tracking customer health. Okay. And I started, I think, so the first thing is, first, the owner you have to define what health looks like. So what it
actually is. Yeah. Okay.
Right? So we started with tons of variables. I wanted to track, were they communicating with me? Did they have any upsell opportunities? Were there any changes in leadership, right? That's always something it wouldn't matter if I was the customer success manager, the owner was. Do I see anything coming down the pike? Are they angry? Are there extra tickets coming in? All of those types of things. So I think the first thing the owner needs to do, one of the first 2 things, is first document where the relationship is now and kind of set an outline of what healthy looks like for all the clients. Okay. But then the other piece is it's all about communication, right? So the owner wants to know what's happening without micromanaging, which is where the struggle and the balance comes into play. So when I started hiring CSMs to work for me, I was sort of I would be the VCIO, and I would have account managers with me that would come with me to the account and watch the relationship and start building the relationship. So I don't recommend that just hover ship somebody out there and drop them off and say good luck, right? Okay. So you need to help them build their own relationship. So some of the things that he would do is we would say, well, this is what I would do with my team. I'll call her Beth. So Beth would join me and I would say, if you have any emails, include me and Beth at the same time. Or when you put in a ticket, support's going to tag Beth so that she knows and can follow up. And then if we got questions that only I could answer, I would tell Beth the answer Beth would then go communicate it. So you have to give that new person a win
Okay.
and help them build the relationship, because the owner's fearful that you're going to ruin the relationship, and the client is fearful that the new person's not going to be able to help them, right? They want the with the big with the top person. So I think finding a way to track it so the owner can always see, right? Have a place where they can go and say red, yellow, green, got it. And then also, what can you do to not just drop someone off into an account, say, good luck, little trooper, and just hope for the best, or you need to scale up that relationship, the first meeting on site together, and let the new person do more of the talking and building the relationship, and let them get some easy wins. So don't take the easy win. If someone would text me and say, hey, Marnie, blah, 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 and I might be just sitting at home, which is laughable, sitting at home doing nothing, and I could reply right back. I would reply back, hey, I'm hopping on a flight. I'll get Beth to give you a call. I'd call Beth, tell her the answer. Beth would call them. Instant answer, right? They know they could still access me, but I had a reason why I could. That kind of helped transition away.
That transition, okay. And I really like the idea of having that sort of health status on your customers, and you go into that as part of your process development here in your book. Could we cover some of those variables within the health status? I mean, the one that really stood out to me actually was when the client comes and asks you for the passwords to their key systems. Like that was like the big red flag for me. Like that's the question you never want to have that pops up.
So it's interesting how we came up with that one. Is I did the activity. So the book is, the beginning, it tells some stories, and then the middle of the book is kind of a workbook of these are some, and whether you have Lifecycle insights or not, it doesn't matter. This is just, business practices. You've got Excel spreadsheets. You can do it there if you want. So when we started the list, I did this activity with our partners. So we had a webinar where we started brainstorming together, and one of our partners suggested that one. They said, if somebody asks for the keys to the kingdom, that might be a sign that they're looking at something. So I think there are two types of metrics. There are the ongoing metrics. So you've got CSAT scores, NPS scores, et cetera, right, that you track over time. There's the sentiment. I think that's part of the gut check, right? Like typically right now, if people are not paying attention to customer success, the owner just has a sense of like, they like me, right?
Yeah, that's an assumption though, isn't it?
That is an assumption, but it's an important one, but it's only a part of it, right? So tracking sentiment, tracking things like in COVID, one of the things our customers would do is they would track whether or not they felt like the business itself was stable. Right. Restaurants are in jeopardy. So that makes, or is there a way you can help them? That type of thing. And then there are those red flag ones that are not ongoing, but you need to identify as a trigger that like lights up your dashboard red right away. One of them, ask for the passwords. Another, something happens to the owner or your primary contact, right?
Yeah, like a change in leadership or something like that.
Change in leadership, right? They've got a nephew who can do this, or their favorite IT company is coming with them. So those are the triggers that you need to put as red flags. And we would look at it weekly and look at any changes in health score. Everybody who was red had an action plan. And depending on where they were in the segment, right? Were they my top tier client that if I lost this, they were 20% of my revenue, that if that was the case, executive leadership would be called, and we would have a tiger team to talk about whatever we were going to do to address it. Or was it a smaller client where we needed to call the project manager, et cetera. So but to create an action plan for that red was key.
Okay, excellent. And the other element to this that I read was about segmenting your customers, so almost like prioritizing your customers into different quadrants. I don't know if you remember that from the book. I've literally just read it, so it's like
Oh, of course,
in my head.
Yeah. So, and that's actually, it's funny because that's what we automate in the platform. So we automate segmenting your clients MRR versus tickets per seat, basically. Yeah. Because kind of getting an effort value. So we look
it's almost like what clients are worth speaking to, like on a quarterly basis, which ones you really are going to be picking up the phone to maybe on a 6 months or even a year's time. They're just not worth the hassle, that type of thing.
Everybody needs a business review, but not everybody needs the same one. Yeah. So when I was a customer of the same company that I became a customer success manager for, their customer success manager insisted on calling me every Friday morning. but that software for me was like 1/19 of my job. So I did not have an hour on Fridays to talk to them. And I actually called the company and said, I'm not speaking to him again. I will change software if you insist on this. Like that, this is too much for me. So you have to pick a cadence that's right for everybody.
Yeah.
And now there's definitely a correlation between the number of business reviews you do with the client and the number of quotes that come in, right? You said your existing client base is where all a ton of opportunity is. So we talk about segmenting into, you know, high effort, high value clients quarterly, maybe monthly. If you're really big clients, you know who they are, right?
Yeah.
High value or high value, low effort, they're your most profitable. So you want to have, just because they're low effort doesn't mean you shouldn't check in with them. They're your referrals. You want to find more clients like them.
It's your referral network, isn't it? Yeah. They could be the smallest, they could be the smallest client, but they could have some of the best contacts that you can, you can reach.
Exactly. And then low value, low effort, you should use your marketing system, your marketing platform to remarket to your existing customer base. So you still need to communicate with them quarterly, but it doesn't need to be a face-to-face meeting because they're not paying you enough probably in order to warrant that time. But if you said, hey, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month and you don't have to sweat because we've got MFA, right? Just reminders of what you've done for them, whatever it may be. Because if you're not talking to your clients, somebody else is.
Someone else is, yeah.
Automated ones, go back, remarket to them. And then the deadly quadrant, high effort, low value. You've got 3 choices: renegotiate, get them to pay what they're costing you. You need to finally convince them to get rid of their Windows 7 machines that are causing so much downtime and putting in so many tickets, right? To lower them down on the effort, or they're the ones you fire, right? If you're a pumpkin, you read the pumpkin plan. It's all about like, maybe there are some clients that aren't good clients. And those, it's interesting. I worked with a woman who put her data in the system and she hovered over the first client in that quadrant. And she said, oh, I hate them. And I said, you know why you hate them? Like they're too much effort. And she said, that's exactly right. That's exactly why I hate them.
And I love that idea of the quadrants. And I've actually seen this probably ties in with the QBRs. I've seen this same system used for QBRs where an MSP actually goes in and develops it's almost like a technology roadmap with the client. And you've basically got a list of all of the tech stack or the projects that need to be done. And you put it into a similar type of quadrant where, okay, this is going to give you the maximum, value, and it's the least effort. That's the first one to do. So getting to the QBRs, the checklist manifesto, I think it's what we discussed before was the ones that I've been part of. I was always very much, it was last minute. I wasn't reading the book on the client before I went in to interview them about how their business was doing. Do you have any sort of best practices on running QBRs and what we should be doing? Setting agenda, things like that. What are the best practices that we should be doing? Because I could certainly. I need help with that.
So there are strategic pieces and tactical pieces.
Okay.
The strategic pieces, think about what you would like to have somebody come talk to you about, your business, right?
Yes.
Not what they're selling you. So if you do one thing, it's how can we change the conversation to, Scott, I'd like to come talk to you about your goals for your business, right? We work with dozens of other folks and help them make their employees more productive, save them time, make you money, expand. Like we're interested in your goals, and we're going to help you develop, the thoughtful use of technology roadmap, as opposed to, I've got all these cool new things, flux capacitors, widgets, and gadgets, right? So the first key is we're going to focus on their business. Okay. And then the next key is it's always collect data that's relevant to them and then align it to their needs. So, there are certain pieces of data that folks care about. There are other pieces of data that are important, but they don't care about. In 2022, I promise you, your client does not care how many spam emails you have stuck with them. Like
how many real emails do I have?
Yeah, they don't care. They also expect, so my computer every morning when I wake up tells me whether or not it has patched itself overnight. So I definitely hope you're not telling me that you're charging me $300 per user to do what my computer already told me it did all by itself, right?
Yeah.
So now originally that was very important when QBRs first became a thing.
Yeah.
This is what managed services were doing for folks, but we're way past that now, right? So at this point, we're looking at securing that environment, not just talking about getting the environment to function, right? That the baseline functioning is sort of table stakes that we're not talking about. So the pieces we aim to automate, now we automate asset lifecycle management, but we include that as part of the budget. And that's the difference. You could go in and say, well, I want to sell you some warranties, or I want to sell you some new devices. But the more important part of that conversation is why we need to do that, right? So that's important. But why? Do they understand, like, we've got some risk because we're not going to be able to patch your Windows 7 machines, which means it's a security threat. So let's take it from the risk perspective instead of from the, well, I said 3 years, so 3 years it is. Why did we establish 3 years? The other automated piece that a lot of our partners talk about is securing the user, right? So we're seeing it move from, you don't just secure the devices, but we need to track the users as well. So the inventorying of, all right, why do we not have MFA turned on for, et cetera? And again, that's not about tattling on users, but it is about we're securing the environment. So there are data inventories we're taking, but the goal is to drive a budget. So we're aiming to drive a budget forecast that delivers on your business outcomes. So in the QBR book, one of our partners, Trisha, says that's what the end goal of a business review is, to talk two things: budget, technology roadmap aligned to their goals, period. Now,
okay.
I mentioned it to you before we started talking live that I'm a fan of multiple quotes and they all align to, like, how are you going to eat an elephant one bite at a time? Yeah. So if you've never done a business review and I just say the words of, like, go build a budget and align it to your business goals, you're probably thinking, like, nope, not.
I'm scratching my head.
It's like a diet plan. Like, oh, in January 1st, I'm going to create a diet plan and I will lose 150 pounds by the end of February. And then it doesn't happen, right? So you got to start somewhere, right? And start with collecting some of the data. So how are you managing asset lifecycle management and user reporting? Let's start there.
That's where it starts. Okay.
That data clean, right? And the other piece is, I typically see the industry is very good at one piece of data at a time, right? Because you have to solve a single problem, but aggregating that is a problem. And your client doesn't really want you to say, well, Scott's machine's fine and Marnie's machine's fine, David's machine's not fine, Josie's machine's okay, et cetera, right? They want to see red, yellow, green. Yeah. It's healthy. We're going to get the red out.
The big picture.
The big picture to start that conversation. And it's interesting when you start to have these conversations around risk, right? So you deliver an assessment that's the same discovery questions everybody's already asking. That's the interesting part, is a lot of people are doing a lot of the components of this, but because they don't have it as a scalable process, let's think checklist, manifesto, right? We don't have it documented as these are the pieces that we're going to include. It seems very ad hoc, very pell-mell, very much one-off. But if we can put a process in place to do the same thing time over time, this process will, again, improve your business by delivering better business reviews, but it will also improve the technology health and status for an individual client. So you're going to be able to show how you've helped improve their, technology and their business through technology by a consistent, it's continual improvement, right? Continual improvement process.
How do you suggest that the process is managed? Like, is it in like a CRM or something like that, where you're taking each one of your clients through, making sure they've got every piece, or is it just following the checklist when, before you're going up to meet with them for a few weeks prior? How would you suggest it's managed?
Well, selfishly, I'm going to say you should just plug into Lifecycle Insights.
Okay. So it does that as well.
So we have a scheduler component where
Okay.
first you can segment your clients.
I
So
see.
who's
I
going to
didn't know that. We'll have to check out the tool at some point.
Yeah, for sure. We'd love to. So yeah, you can go in and say, this client is going to be a quarterly. This one's going to be semi-annual. This is going to be annual, and give yourself an overview. Because what you don't want to do is say, oh, I'm going to do all 24 business reviews in December. No, you're not, right? Like that's probably all by yourself. That's not going to happen. So put a set of cadence in place. And then in the process of, so we have we aim to give you an easy button. We call it Report Builder, but figure out what you want to include in your portfolio. So everybody's got, I think the important part of managed services is you can't commoditize everything, right? A lot of the technology is commoditized, but the way you define your stack is your special recipe, right? Those are your ingredients. So figure out what that is and what you want to deliver and have an agenda, right? You mentioned at the beginning, having an agenda that you follow every time will help get a process in place. So I say agenda for a couple reasons. First, if you've had a bad business review in the past, you're going to have to send someone an agenda about a better business review for them to want to come to the table again. So one of the things the agenda does is shows your client how you're going to deliver value to them, right? So Scott, I'd love to come have a chat with you about some things we're seeing in your environment and see if you have any new initiatives that we can maybe save you some money or, help make you more efficient. I'm going to send across an agenda of some things I'd like to talk about. If you have some things that are top of mind, I'd love for you to send that back.
Okay.
I've just triggered some ideas of your mind, like what are your what are your business initiatives? And if you send back to me, oh, I want to expand to another district, right? Then I, the MSP, can come in saying, okay, we can help here. And you as an MSP don't want to get blindsided with some, cabling project you didn't know about, right? You just start getting insights into their business needs and how to align it. And think about what we said at the very beginning. The business owner they would love to have a conversation about their business, and sending that agenda over helps them see that is what you're going to talk about, as opposed to, oh, Marnie's going to come talk again, and we're going to have to go through 1,000 tickets that we've discussed, and she's going to say flux capacitor, and I'm not going to understand what she's talking about, right? But instead, I want to come to your business. So I think having a consistent agenda, we have a default draft one in the platform that frankly we've gotten from our MSPs that say we like
taking all the best bits.
Yep. One of our MSPs said we always ask about succession planning because if the business owner hasn't thought about what their exit strategy is, you're very much a business consultant at this point, but also you get insights into, oh, he's planning on leaving in a year. And I'm going to get new leadership. So if you can be on the team to help transition, you're less likely to churn, right? So I think there's a lot of power in that agenda driving the conversation, but also getting information from your clients about where they want you to drive.
Oh, that brings me to my final question then. You mentioned that success planning, and it's obviously something that's, there's there has been a lot of money sloshing around in the marketplace recently, but the changing environment that we've got now, people are worried about potential recession, but at the same time, there's big opportunities. So from an MSP's perspective, when it comes to customer success and things like QBRs, where do you see the opportunities for MSPs in the space? What do you see at your CompTIA meeting at the moment that has been discussed that directly feeds into this?
Yeah. Oh, so many things. So it's interesting. I heard Paul Dipple talk, and he said the two things, there's an operational maturity model for MSPs with, I think it's 140, 170, a lot of questions. He said, if we had to drill this down to two that will move the needle for MSPs, these are the two questions. One, what percentage of your clients get true quarterly business reviews? Two, what percentage of your clients are fully aligned to your stack? So I think the second one is the important piece there. So in a down economy, your opportunity for growth typically lies within your existing customer base. I know one coach that says if you haven't been doing business reviews, there's an opportunity for 50% more MRR within your existing customer base. Typically, I hear, if I'm averaging what the consultants and coaches say, they're comfortable saying around 30%. And that's certainly what we wrote in the book. So that is where your opportunity is. 90% of your revenue is within existing customers, right? And then if you can add on top of that, the retention in a down economy is really important. If you can help make those clients more efficient in a down economy, you can help them grow. The thing that actually I chatted about last night while at the conference is that a lot of folks are going to look for ways to save on employee costs.
Yeah.
And so they may be open for co-managed opportunities or outsourcing their IT instead of hiring someone new. So I think there's first selling to, so we have a whole stack alignment piece to give you insights into opportunities. So you can see on my stack, right? This is where folks, we can drive some new conversation. But the other piece for new logos is who is looking to size down maybe some expense and outsource IT or co-manage some IT instead of hiring a new headcount. And, that's not just with the down economy, but with the job market the way it is.
Yeah.
Instead of hiring new, right? Here's an experienced someone that knows what they're doing, knows how to move the needle. And if we can partner with them, that's a faster ramp up time if you've got a managed service provider as opposed to somebody new that you're testing for the first time.
Yeah, definitely that element co-managing. I've seen that used in the past. We had like a mini recession where I am here in the world, Aberdeen, Scotland, back in 2012. It was oil prices were going crazy and they went right down. And what worked well then was co-managed at the time. And it was down to costs, but also the lack of skills that were out there. So it worked both ways. I love it, Marnie. I think we're going to tie up there. Is there anything else? How can people get in touch with you, actually, Marnie? That's my last question for today.
Well, the beauty of being named Marnie Stockman is I'm the only one on LinkedIn. So that's a great way to find me, but also Marnie.stockman@lifecycleinsights.io. So Marnie.
I've got the two books here as well. This will be
on Amazon. So
they're on Amazon, yeah.
I would like to make one comment on the MSP Owner's Handbook. So literally the book on customer success, that was my first one. Yeah. That's $4.99 on Amazon, right?
This was your first one, yeah?
That was my first one, yeah.
So I thought this was your first one. Okay.
No. Yep. I wanted to say, I wrote the book on customer success for MSPs, literally. So a pun got me that book. Then Juan Fernandez and I wrote the MSP Owner's Handbook. So this one is $12.99. This is the QBR edition. It's $12.99, but half of that goes to basically a scholarship fund for folks who want to get certifications. And so there's a website that goes with it where we're donating half of. So we're not getting rich on the MSP Owner's Handbook. We're giving it back to folks certifications.
Love it. Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate your time. And
thank you.
Yeah, enjoy Nashville. Take it easy.
Oh, I shall. Thanks.